having that plan in place is one thing, but actually sticking to that plan in place is a whole nother ball game. And that's really where a lot of people do get messed up. Welcome back to the second episode of the Cyberspace Podcast. I think we were all kind of blown away by the amount of support that we got in the first episode. Just looking at the numbers and the analytics, it's very nice to see that people enjoyed it, people subscribed, and really people liked everything that we had to say and how we really bridge that gap between Web 2 and Web 3. But the topic that we really want to talk about today I think, is a very relevant topic with the bear markets kind of going on, not just in the crypto market, not just in the NFT market, but we also have the futures market and the stock market that is down as well. And the topic that we wanted to talk about today is, as you guys can read in the title, is about building your investor's journey or building your identity as an investor. For me, I always like to come back to a place of like, okay, why did I become a trader? Why did I become an investor? And it's not for me to sit in front of this computer for 6 to 12, 14 hours a day. It's for me to get on the computer for, a few hours a day and make the best educated decisions that I can make that can ultimately make me money at the end of the day, or I can continue to use my money as a tool to make me more money. But we feel that this is, just like I said, a very relevant topic in what we have going on. And so people need to understand what can they do to kind of prepare themselves even more whenever we do get to the bottom of this bear market. A lot of people are saying, man, I wish I would have bought Bitcoin at 60,000 whenever it was in the $70,000 range. Or I wish I would have bought, Ethereum at 3,000. But now here we are, about to go under $1,000 just for an Ethereum token, but people are neglecting to buy. So it's like, why is that? So why is it that, in such a negative time, we can't be the people that, reinforce and bring the positive vibes back to the community? And so, like I said, that's really what we're here to do today. And just, something quick, something simple, and just remind you guys that, a lot of this bleeding, a lot of this pain that people are going through is just a very temporary thing at the moment. But with me, joined today in this podcast, we have Kevin and we have Coach Carver. I know both of these guys are about to drop a lot of alpha in the things that they have to say. So I'm excited to kind of dive into this conversation and really hear from them. So guys, what's going on? How are you guys doing today?
Adam, doing good, brother, doing good. Appreciate having us on here yet again, and definitely excited. And you're right, these are some crazy times, and a lot of people right now are pretty fearful. There's a lot of blood in the streets when you're taking a look at the entire crypto and Web3 market. I mean, you take a look at even some of the bigger NFT projects, down significant amount of money, and a lot of this could have really been seen and understood. And I know we've been teaching it within the digital gold mine, so for all of our Cybonix holders, they've been able to tap in every week, and we've been talking kind of about some of the market conditions, talking about some of the things that are going on. And it's one of those things at the end of the day, you just have to understand that there are much bigger players within these markets. You have people that are manufacturing price action and driving price exactly where they need it to go so they can get those better entries. And taking a look at some of the things that are going on with BTC, with Ethereum, and seeing, how they really drove price down. I mean, we were actually able to warn all of our holders, and that, I'm grateful that we were able to have that opportunity to do so. And I know some people are able to truly capitalize on it. One of our holders was able to actually purchase a mutant ape with the money that he was able to save. So major shout out. Yeah, that's huge, but it's just one of those things, like you're saying, Adam, like, these are some tough times within the markets, but just understanding that there's much bigger things at play. And it's times like these where, you can just really kind of take a step back. You don't need to expose yourself to a bunch of risk. Right now, the markets are extremely crazy. I got introduced into trading back in 2014. And even right now, I'm really just kind of taking a step back, letting the bigger guys do what they need to do, let these institutions and these large hedge funds and everybody else really just kind of battle this out to where I can, just take this time to double down on education and growing and just really studying the market and looking at how, this last bear market compared to this one is really going on. And really at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of manipulation. There's manipulation from the institutional smart money investors all the way down to, taking advantage of retail investors. And it's times like these where you need to just kind of take a step back. Don't open yourself up to a bunch of risk and, really just stick to your plan. And I think something like that can definitely, really help people out.
Yeah, definitely. Just having that plan in place is one thing, but actually sticking to that plan in place is a whole nother ball game. And that's really where a lot of people do get messed up is they don't necessarily follow their plan. They may have it sitting on a piece of paper on their desk, but if you don't look at it, then what's the point of it being there? I know time and time again, just in my trading journey, um, I've always had a plan broken down of steps that I was going to take, but the moment, I'd go into drawdown or something, it'd just be like, well, if it just gets back and I get $4 out of this trade, or if I get $20 out of this trade, I'll be happy. And then all of a sudden, it hits that $20 marker where I'm in profits $20. Well, it's just like, oh, what if it goes to $30? Or what if it
Yeah.
goes, and so it just keeps going through this cycle. But a lot of it, guys, it's really based upon your self-discipline whenever it comes to this, because I mean, you got to keep in mind that, yes, we're playing with a tool here, and that tool is money. But if you don't know how to properly manage that tool is going to work against you. And that's something that what we're trying to do here is to help people use the tools and resources properly. That a way they can continue to kind of live the life that they're trying to go and achieve all of these great things. But to really see people freaking out in the time of what's happening right now is like it kind of sucks to get on Twitter now and kind of scroll through the news feed with all of the negativity going on. And it's just like, guys, you got to realize that this is just a cycle. There's so many more ups and downs outside of just the market. And if you really take a light or more of like a life approach to it, like we go through these same ups and downs as we do in our own lives, and yet we're able to manage how we get to that next level. And so there's nothing different about the stock market or the crypto market as to our lives. So it's just an interesting perspective of what I've seen.
I think the biggest thing to understand here, I mean, beyond the technicals, beyond fundamentals and things like that, I mean, just look at it at a high level. This happens. I mean, we're in correction zone right now, correction mode right now. And I think this is the biggest opportunity. And that's how people should look at it, as like an opportunity to get into, whether it's a coin or get into stocks or even NFT projects or brands. And it's the biggest opportunity right now to get in at a cheap time where you didn't have this actual position to get into something like this a couple months ago. You know what I mean? So I think it's just a big mindset thing also to really understand, like, hey, like if I wasn't able to get in a couple months ago when ETH was $2,000-$3,000, like now is the time to get into like an NFT project, for example. Like I think right now we're really preparing ourselves for the biggest transfer of wealth. And yeah, I'm really, really excited to see what the next like couple months are looking like. I think that's how people should really like have like that in terms of their outlook. They should really start thinking about it like that too. I think that's important to understand.
Definitely. I think you kind of said it right there. That's that we're kind of on the outside looking in right now at the biggest transfer of wealth in history. And as we all know, and as we've talked about on multiple Twitter Spaces or maybe in the last podcast episode, that mass education becomes before that mass adoption. And that's kind of what this whole period over for myself alone, this whole period of the last 7 months has been nothing but just mass education day in and day out, really preparing me for this moment right now. Is I like to keep saying, like, guys, we're about to get into the generational wealth entry points. I'm not so worried about my NFTs coming down in value, because we're playing with Ethereum at the end of the day is all we're doing. And so for me, I've done my research on Ethereum. I've traded Ethereum. I've done it all with Ethereum. So now Ethereum is kind of one of those cryptocurrencies that I'm not going to say I trust, but it's going to be one of those major assets that I do like to trade and like to have my money in, just because I've seen the things that they've done, just in terms of like transforming, portfolios or whatever it is, but just seeing this whole like education piece really come into fruition for myself. Now I'm excited. I'm not so much worried. I'm just more excited of like, okay, when does that bull market really start to come back into play for us?
I think we're pretty close, honestly. I mean, you take a look at the time of this recording, you got Ethereum sitting around 1108, 1110. I mean, I think right now we're just seeing it prepare for one last little manipulation move down. There's hundreds of millions of dollars in liquidity just resting below here, just prepping for a nice little manipulation down. I think this last move down is going to be the kind of the bigger one, leading to the accumulation working its way up. And I'm with you, looking at Ethereum, looking at Bitcoin. I mean, those are two of the most rock solid, coins and assets that you can invest into. And that's one of the things, looking at, it's just, letting these bigger players do their things. We've talked about it many times in the digital gold mine that there's retail investors, there's institutional investors, and, being able to understand that there are people much larger than yourself with much more money, really just driving the force back there. And that's where you have to come in with a plan. And I liked where you were talking about that before, Adam. Is like, it's really easy to get outside of that plan and tell yourself, I'm going to do this. But then when the going gets good, people get greedy. And that's where you see people, well, maybe you can go to this, maybe you can go to this, maybe you can go to this. You got to stick to your plan, whether you're trading Forex, stocks, crypto, whether you're trading indices, commodities, metals, or even coming into NFT space. I mean, you need to be able to have a plan. And that goes back to one of my favorite sayings. If you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. And you need to come in and have that, mental clarity and understand what it is that you're investing into. And you need to make sure that you're not investing any money that you cannot afford to lose, right? And that's one of the biggest things that you can take a look at. When you go in and you take a look at an NFT project, you need to have, not only your entry plan, but your exit plan as well. Ask yourself, okay, at what point am I going to liquidate this asset, if I'm even going to, right? You see a lot of people come into something like Cybonix. I know I've taught on this before, and I know a lot of people were able to set themselves up pretty nicely prior to this last major pump that we've had here within Cybonix. I put a perspective out there, right? Whale status is 10 NFTs. A lot of people, they just see that goal of, oh my gosh, I want to hold 10 cyborgs and have that whale status. But what a lot of people don't do is set themselves up with a plan and say, hey, not only do I want to have whale status within Cybonix, but I do know that this project is going to pump. So let me go ahead and prepare, grab a couple extra. That way, when it does actually pump, I have something that I can liquidate, because a lot of people put themselves in that position and they just go ahead and grab 10. They're like, boom, I got 10. I'm good to go. I got whale status. Everything's chilling. And then you see us go from 0.02 to a 0.24, and people are like, oh shit, I can't really liquidate because I'm going to lose my whale status. And people don't really necessarily think about that thing. And this is one of the things that I take going into really any investment, any trading plan whatsoever, is knowing not only what is my entry, what is my stop loss, what is the most that I'm willing to let this thing go down to, but where is my take profit levels? And a lot of people don't think about something like that. So when you're going into a brand like Cybonix, being able to have that understanding of like, look, like my entry price is this, my dollar cost average price is this across all of these. At this point, I'm going to sell maybe one or two, go ahead and secure all of my initial investment, grab my partials out, and then I'll maybe liquidate another one or two at this point. Give you a perfect example. I think I probably bought over 30 at this point. After giving some away, I've got roughly 26 or something like that left, cyborgs, and I got a drone. I'm going to liquidate one or two around an ETH. I'll probably liquidate a couple around 2 ETH, probably liquidate a couple around 3 ETH. And it's just some of those things where I'm going through and I understand what my plan is. And I understand that I'm not only able to maintain my whale status, but my mega whale status as well. And these are some of the same thought process that you guys need to have going into these projects, going into these brands, going into the market, being able to understand how much are you actually going to put in? Are you going to put it all in at once? Are you going to dollar cost average in? What is the method that you're going to be doing this? So a lot of people don't ask themselves this question. They get that shiny object syndrome, like, oh my God, that project's cooler. This coin's going to pump or this, that. And then they just go ahead and they buy. And then they're like, well, I bought, now what? And you need to go through and you need to, understand. And if you can't understand, you need to surround yourself with people that do.
Yeah. I think a lot of what you just talked on is a great pivot point here for this episode, and really, tell people or teach people on what it means to really create that plan. And for me personally, a lot of my trading goals and investing goals are at the moment are to build cash flow. I'm not so much focused on long-term investments at this current moment. And so a lot of people are gonna be like, why? Well, that's just dumb. I've had people ask me, it's like, well, why don't you get in anything long term and that kind of thing and just sit on it and hold it? I'm like, I'm not saying I'm against that whatsoever, but for the point that I'm at with my trading journey is I'm more focused on creating cash flow. That way, whenever these, longer term investments come along, I actually have the liquidity to put money into it that will make me a lot more in such a shorter amount of time, even though it may be still a longer term hold. But like I said, what I'm looking for is more cash flow. So that's why I have chosen to, day trade and scalp trade more than, swing trading, or like I said, investing in like Tesla stock or something like that. For me, so that's how my plans are in place right now. Now, I'm not saying this should be for everybody whatsoever. Like I said, it comes down to your goals and where you're trying to be within, the next 6 months, within the next year, within the next 2 years, um, or or the next 5 years, however you like to structure your life, that a way you feel most whole in the direction that you go. But just with like the with my Cybonix investment, I am holding, I think it's like 13 or 15, I don't remember the exact number there, but I have a very similar plan to you as you, Carver, there. I know for me, whenever I go to take profits for the very first time just on the project, I'm going to be covering my initial investment. So whether that's me selling 2 or 3 cyborgs at 2 ETH or whatever it is, it really depends on the price of ETH too, and where our four price is at that current moment. But for me, it's about taking care of my initial investment. Now I'm even more risk free than I was in Cybonix. So now with the remaining cyborgs that I have, that's where I'm going to use those remaining cyborgs, with the exception of the number one Wardon in the collection. Sorry to come at you like that, Kevin. Now that
Here
vote's
we go.
public and out there, I got to use it to my advantage, right? But with the exception of Wardon, now I'm going to be using the remaining of those cyborgs to put into the Swift Shootout marketplace. That way I can just rent those out and then generate passive income from allowing other people to play with my NFTs and that kind of thing. So I'm coming at a very like educational plan, in knowing that this is going to be happening within the next 6 months or so. But yeah, that's just kind of my plan, kind of my breakdown. And like I said, guys, whenever you are really creating these investment plans or your trading plans, make sure it aligns with your goals, not just because you saw someone on the internet or on a TikTok saying that they just flipped $1,000 into $10,000. Don't make that your goal, because you're most likely going to lose your $1,000.
I think it goes even deeper, and like I'm about diversification, right? I mean, I'm about the quick flips. I'm about the long term holding. I think that's the biggest part of my portfolio, is just a long term. That's like I like to play the long term game, and that's where I'm at with my journey. And I think from an NFT perspective, everything that's going on right now in correlation to the price of ETH, for example, I mean it's definitely taking a toll on floor prices. It's taking a toll on communities in general in the NFT space, and I mean everybody's feeling it. However, what I look at when I'm trading NFTs is, and what I value the most, and I think it's what you should really look into rather than just looking at floor price and volume and things like that. Look at teams. I think that's one of the biggest factors that can tell you whether or not a project is able to scale long term is the team behind it. So if there's a strong team behind a project, and I mean, like for an example, right now, like Cybonix, you know what I mean? Like if we're thankfully, I can't say like we're in the trenches. I mean, we're doing better than ever in a bear market, and we're just getting started with all the things that we've been implementing in terms of like utility and just adding on to the team and all the skill sets coming on board to be able to execute a lot of these utilities. It's incredible. And but other projects, for example, I mean, right now, like floors that were at like 3-4 ETH like a couple months ago, right now are shredded at like 1 ETH, and they're struggling to stay there. However, you got to look at a brand like, okay, like I got into this for like not just from a floor price perspective, but I'm looking at it at like, okay, like these guys are scaling, they're continuing to build in the bear market. Like that's an important factor to look at. And I think if that's something that you pay attention to, again, in the long term, you're going to end up winning, man, because that's just how it's played out for me in the stock market. That's how it's played out for me for crypto coins and things like that. I mean, I think the same thing really applies to NFT projects as well.
Yeah, definitely. I like the plan of kind of diversifying and, not so much paying attention to the floor price, right? Because that can be really deceiving to someone who's new actually coming into the space. I know for me, whenever I very first came into the space, that's the first thing I look at. Okay, it's like, what's the floor price? right? But it's not necessarily about the floor price. The floor price is just, you know, is just a person who is willing to sell at the least amount of money. That's the way I like to look at it. That's it. So for me, whenever I see a person who, undercuts the floor or whatever, now I like to go into, either that brand or that project and figure out, okay, why is it that this specific person is wanting to undercut the floor price? Are they lacking utility? Are they lacking a team like you're talking about, Kevin? Are they just lacking with community engagement? And so that's just something that I like to look at, as part of just like my investor's plan, whenever I'm coming into something new.
No, that's a big thing, honestly, too. And what you're talking about, like looking at floor price, I mean, it is extremely deceiving. There are projects right now that have incredibly high floor price, but zero utility, zero future, and zero trading volume going on. It's just you happen to have a bunch of people that refuse to sell. On the other hand, I mean, you could have took a look at Cybonix a month ago and seen we're sitting at a 0.2, 0.03 floor. You'd be like, oh, they're a little bit below mint. And instead of like being like, I don't know, maybe sit this one out, you could be like, that's a huge opportunity. These guys are building out crazy utility. I could essentially get access to things that people are paying hundreds of dollars a month, and I could pay, essentially buy it for $100, $150. I think they're going for at one point, maybe even like 8,500, whatever. Regardless, right? People could come in and take a look at that. And it's just really how you look at the things, right? Some people come in, they get scared. Other people come in, they see opportunity. What I'm really looking for, and I like what Kevin and Adam, what you guys were going into, is like really looking into something and looking into a project. I hate using that word, especially when we're talking about like Cybonix and some of our other partner communities, because I don't see us as a product. I see us as a long-term brand, a long-term company, something that is being built out and will be around for a very long time. Regardless, when I go through and I take a look at it, and I like to say what Kevin was saying, going in and taking a look at the founding team, who's the core team, who are the people that are waking up day in and day out, just putting this project, company, brand, whatever on their back and making it happen, right? Who are the people that are the driving force behind this? That is a huge thing. The other thing is, does the art resonate with me? Is this something that I just genuinely want to hold in my wallet? What is the utility? What can I gain from being a part of this community, a part of this ecosystem, right? I've said many times, I'll say many more. I look at NFTs as a key into an ecosystem. I look at it as a key into getting something in return, whether that's networking, whether that's education and alpha, or like what we got going on with the trade signals or transformative thinking, or even the digital gold mine calls, stuff like that. Like, these are some of the things that you need to go in and ask yourself, okay, what is it that I'm going to receive in return? Is it just going to be some basic, profile picture that I can brag about? Or is it bringing me real world utility? Is it bringing me value? Is it getting me access to something greater than what I had before? And then if so, I got to ask myself, what's the total number of supply? You take a look at Cybonix, that's a 1,500 piece supply. For what's being offered, that's very small, very minimal. It's easy to manage. And you got to ask yourself, okay, 1,500 keys essentially into this ecosystem. What can that provide me? Do I want to grab more than just one key? Do I want to grab multiple keys? Do I want to set myself up to where I can, essentially take advantage of, some future profits? These are some of the things that you need to be going through and asking yourself. And there's many ways we could go about this entire conversation, guys. But the biggest thing, whether you're trading stocks, whether you're trading crypto, whether you're trading Forex, whether you're trading commodities, metals, indices, or even futures, or even NFTs, come in with a plan. When I'm trading Forex, I have a plan. I have my confirmations, the same way that I have my confirmations for my NFT projects that I'm looking into. I have my confirmations for the trade. Does the macro and microstructure have correlation? Where's the liquidity? Are there any inefficiencies or imbalances? Where, what part of the market cycle are we in right now? And what's the overall story? What are some of these things? What are my confirmations? And then guess what? My plan goes even deeper. I know the most I'm willing to risk on any one of those trades is 1%. Most of the times it's 0.5%. I know myself and Adam have been going through doing this funding challenge, stuff like that. You have to be very precise and very calculated in your approach and how you tackle these markets, because you can get humbled extremely quickly. Whether you're buying into a project and that thing just next day, here, gone tomorrow, or you're buying into crypto. A lot of people could have seen Ethereum have 1,500, be like, wow, this is a great deal. It was just at 2,500, and then it dropped all the way to 1,000. Right? We had warned our holders about that. And that's some of the things that you need to come in and have a plan. What is your stop loss? What is your entry? What are your take profit levels? And again, if you do not have a plan, you're essentially planning to fail.
No, I was actually gonna kind of shift the conversation after you just dropped all of that alpha, but you kind of answered my next question to you guys, and that was just gonna be like, hey, let's just kind of go around and give a last minute tip to people on what they can do to really start to build themselves up or build a trading plan or figure out what type of investor that they are. But as you just went ahead and fulfilled that piece for me, Kevin, do you have any last minute tips or things that you would like to kind of share with our audience here?
Yeah, I guess just from my perspective, man, I like to prepare for the long term and just, I guess, look into your financial situation, right? It's, that's just one trading plan to go about. But I mean, if you're looking to really get into the trading game and set yourself up something like similar to what you were saying, Adam, and just your strategy, I think that's definitely the way to go about it. But I'm all about diversification too, and I like to do both. So my biggest thing is set up for long term. When it comes to NFTs, look into the team, look into the value they provide, and whether or not they're able to scale based on their skill sets. And yeah, man, I mean, just, the good thing is right now ETH is low, and I think there's some pretty big brands that I'm looking into. I know I talked to you guys a little bit about it, and the thing is, like, these NFTs were like 30, 40 grand a couple months ago. They're still holding at the same ETH price, but right now from a fiat perspective, I mean, they're like 10, 15 grand now, which is insane. So I think it's just, look at it like that too. Everything goes back up at the end of the day. So set yourself up for something like that. And I think right now, little by little, we're getting to a point where, like, okay, like, now is the time to pull the trigger on some of these things and set yourself up for the long term.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. I think, long term is also one of those things that's always in the back of my head is, even though I'm such a short term, gaining cash flow investor at this moment, I'm still thinking about, okay, what could my next long term move be now that I just executed a plan correctly? So, you may be, as you guys are kind of listening to this podcast, rewind it, go pick out some of the golden nuggets and stuff that were said during this episode. But, one really last thing that I want to talk to you guys about is just getting involved. That is the biggest way to understand these markets is by being involved and not just sitting on the sidelines. I've missed out on multiple thousands of dollar trades just for the fact that I sat on the sidelines and didn't execute my plan. Even though I had the plan ready to go and it was going to go in the way that it needed to go, I missed out on a lot of those good investments, a lot of those good trades just because I was sitting on the sidelines. But there is also one other thing that I really do need to bring up, and it's the fact that um, you need to learn how to be effective and not busy with your time, because it is super easy to get lost in OpenSea looking through collections and sitting there for hours on end. And you have to really realize that, like I said at the very beginning of this podcast, it should not be your goal to sit in front of a computer for 12 hours a day to make money, because then what's the difference of having the 9 to 5 that could be supplying you with the capital that you could use to go sit on the computer at nighttime to figure out what NFT projects or NFT brands that you want to invest in? What would be that difference? There's really no difference. So you need to figure out how to be more effective with your time, especially whenever it comes to the investment industry. Like I said, you just need to be involved, be effective, and continue to build yourself out. Like I said, this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. For me, I've overcome a lot of trials and tribulations that I didn't even think were possible to overcome. So I know if I'm a person that if you're someone like me who has the grit, the determination to keep moving forward, then you're going to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Coach Carver and Kevin, thank you for always dropping the free alpha that you guys do. I know you guys are two people that I've looked up to and, confided in with investment opinions and that kind of thing. And, really trust what you guys have to say. So I'm definitely grateful that you guys are co-host on the Cyberspace podcast. But I think we're going to wrap it up here. So if you guys are listening, watching on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. We will be putting out episodes on Fridays. So as again, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you sometime soon.